back on the record, and actually we're going to take a item out of order but on time, and that would be the liquor license application for Majestic 10. So actually, Meryl, can you come up and sit at the table? We came back to revisit this because we wanted to hear a little bit more information. I understand, Eric, you talked to the chief. Chief is here, but he said that you know what he's going to say.
Oh.
So,
I shared with the board a memo yesterday, and thanks for just a couple days just to gather a little information here, and for our folks at the Majestic 10, you bringing this forward for us to take a look at it. So I reached out to see kind of how other towns have approached this. We had a couple that were mentioned tonight, so I checked in with some town managers. Down in Stowe, the Stowe Cinema 3-plex, they've offered alcohol service in theater for a number of years. The manager tells me he's been there for 17 years, and it predated him. Their Stowe Selectboard hasn't put any specific conditions on consumption. It occurs in the theaters there, as I mentioned. Capitol Theater in Montpelier hasn't made a request to date. They have a small theater, Savoy Theater there, that's offered consumption for a number of years, and the city hasn't encountered issues. Morristown, the Bijou Theater was granted a liquor license, and there are no conditions placed on that by their select board. So the chief and I, in speaking, and certainly chief to jump into as well, some things that were brought up the other night that the applicants I'm sure can speak to with our feedback from the Department of Liquor Control. Just lighting to see faces and IDs of patrons while the movie's playing. How's that accomplished in the darker theater? The conduct of patrons controlled in theaters. Consumption by minors, how that would be prevented. Things the board could think about is considering a limit of sales per patron per transaction, for example, 1 or 2 drinks. The type of container allowed to be served in. I think the applicant's looking at plastic cups they had mentioned the other night. We're certainly mindful of the financial situation the theater's facing that they've shared. As you're thinking about this, a suggestion could be maybe a trial period. If you're thinking about the in-theater component of it, maybe that's over a period, set a period of time and then revisit it to give them kind of a pilot for that, or also to think about if you start with the lobby adjacent area consumption, then moving to the pilot for the theater. But that's kind of what the chief and I chatted about, and I got some feedback from those other towns. I don't believe they offer it in Essex. I didn't have a chance to connect with the manager there. That's a larger facility as well. I also brought up wastewater capacity and chatted with our public works director. There's no concern there for any added capacity. So that's where we are at the staff level.
okay. And you're seeking a license that allows consumption in the theater itself?
Correct.
So, yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Questions from the board?
I'm still a little bit confused on the concern about lighting in the theater. I mean, I can definitely understand lighting when you purchase it, but lots of places, clubs and things don't have super bright lights at
I think they're concerned that a 21-year-old will hand the beer over to a 20-year-old.
which could happen anywhere you serve alcohol.
Well, yes, there's that. Yeah.
Yeah. People consume alcohol in a restaurant with their families. There's never been a problem with that.
Well,
I wouldn't go that far.
I believe it's a training, right, that to serve alcohol, that anybody who's gonna serve the alcohol has to go through the training, so all of
Yes.
your employees who would be serving or pouring would go through that mandatory training.
Yes.
And you
They'll need a certificate that they've completed a test and training online.
You mentioned bracelets, didn't you?
Yes, I'm gonna get a glow-in-the-dark wristbands.
Yeah.
That way we can watch them better in the theater. All the theaters have cameras, so our managers are constantly monitoring all of the theaters, and I can monitor them from my house. She's monitoring them right now from her phone, so we're always watching very closely. And of course, we have people in and out of the theaters all day long checking them. But I don't see a problem with the lighting. If the liquor inspector comes in, you can see everybody's face. It's not pitch black in there at all. The brightness from the screen. And then you'll see the glow-in-the-dark bracelets also.
Is it, am I right that every liquor license expires on April 30th anyway?
They changed it a couple years ago, so it's a year from the date issued.
Okay, all right.
I mean, I don't see a value to a trial period in the lobby. I just personally, I don't go to that many movies, but I can't imagine chugging a glass of wine before I go in to see a movie. I'd be more likely.
I feel like that's more likely
Worse.
to encourage like
Yeah.
overconsumption, but
So, but I could see doing a 6-month trial if we weren't comfortable with a whole year, or actually at any point, Eric, if we give anybody a liquor license and start finding problems at that,
You know, we've done that. I mean, we've had managers from the grocery stores come in when there was a significant issue, and I think it might have been Hannaford's that had to close down their beer
Right.
and wine operation for a while. And so we do bring people in.
so if this wasn't in control, we have the authority to pull back the liquor. Well then, maybe we don't even need a trial.
would you consider limiting the sales of drinks like per transaction to like if an individual comes up, you're not,
Yes.
give them like 4 drinks and have them walk away? Or
I think a 2 beer limit would be
Yeah.
good, or a beer and a wine, they have a date or, but, they'll both have wristbands. Everybody that is served will have to have a wristband before a sale.
Okay. Chief, did you have a?
I was listening to
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that makes sense in limiting, but I don't know if that's something we can, enforce or just policy for the theater.
Is that part of the regulations or law about these things anyway? I mean, can you walk up to a bar and order like four beers and then take them back to a table, or do they?
I think so.
We passed a law a number of years ago, the no drink left behind, so people can go and get 2, one for themselves and one for their date or whatever.
Okay.
I was wondering why it felt safer in Vermont.
Now you can still get drinks delivered right to your car when you get a takeout order. That's until July of 25.
Yeah.
That's,
Good to know.
it's another level.
So is the board leaning toward just a blanket license or a license that is time limited so that we see it as a trial basis, or because we can, if there's a problem, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I was just maybe issue the license, but just request a review or maybe an update to us, that everything is going fine in 6 months or something, and if it wasn't, then, reconsider, but, yeah.
I don't feel we need to do that. I feel like we don't do that with any other license that we allow.
you maybe making an informal one.
Right, that's what I
not a
mean, just like,
conditional
it doesn't have to
license,
be an official review, just an update of, it's going okay.
Meryl, would you come back in 6 months and give us a report?
I'm still here. I'll be here.
Okay. So so the motion wouldn't have that as
Yeah,
an official part of it?
yeah,
Just, okay,
yep. So,
okay. So,
Your motion you approved Tuesday was to grant the license with the condition of limiting it to the area adjacent up to the lobby. So I'm just thinking, point of order, if you're looking at Terry as parliamentarian here.
who made the motion?
You can make a motion to rescind that part of that motion, and if that passes, we're up to doing something else.
Does it have to be the person who made the motion?
No, to reconsider it would be, but the motion to rescind, there's no problems with.
this feels like a motion that has Terry written all over it.
So I move to rescind the action that the select board took on Tuesday evening regarding the liquor license for the movie theater.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
There are no nays, it passes. Is there a follow-up motion to be made?
You're on a roll.
So the motion would be to allow it. This is a first-class license, I
First
believe.
and second?
Second-class license for the Majestic Theater with no restrictions.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Does that cover,
Is that language good?
would there be a mandatory bracelet situation? Would that be part of our license, or is that not authorized?
I think that we have an understanding with the operator that's gonna happen. If that doesn't happen, then we will, our unofficial timeframe is to see them back here in 6 months.
But if it's not part of the motion,
It is not.
but if that were so, then it wouldn't be enforceable in 6 months anyway.
Yeah.
Trust me, I will be doing it.
Yeah,
This should only be a first-class license, not a second, correct?
I don't know. Was it a first class or a second
I
class?
think it's just,
It's beer and wine.
Beer and wine.
Which I believe is a
First class.
First class.
First class.
I believe is a first class.
yeah.
Oh,
Okay, first,
There you go.
okay. So, is there further discussion on the motion?
The motion should be corrected to state only one first class.
Yes,
Okay,
it's a
that's,
first class.
that's
Yeah.
everybody's understanding of the motion? All right, okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it.
so I
You're
get
all set.
Congratulations.
So, yeah, license has been issued.
Wonderful.
We're all set.
Thank you. Drinks are on me.
So I know we'll approve it at the local level, then you'll get it from
Right,
the.
so now I go to the state for the liquor license, or do I get the
Yeah,
liquor
yeah,
license from you?
you've put it through, so, the town clerk on Monday, she'll, approve it in the pending portal, then we'll go to state DLC, and then you'll receive it from the state, and they'll follow up if they have any final questions for you.
Okay.
I'm not sure. You could call, I would reach out to State Department of Liquor Control directly, and they can,
Channel 5 actually did,
Oh.
and I guess they have 18 days or something to get through.
okay, yeah, they have their own review process, I think, so, yeah, you could give them a call
Right,
and just.
so I come in Monday and they'll have a paper saying,
Yeah,
show the liquor license, the liquor board.
yeah, actually, yeah, it's all a portal. So the town clerk, we have to approve it as the local board just did. So the town clerk will just approve that in the portal on the town's behalf, and she's in next. And then the state will receive that notification. So then it goes to their step to process it, and then it will just depend
Okay,
on their process.
so I can't sell anything until I get approval from the state.
Correct.
Correct,
You need to
yeah.
get it from the state first.
Wonderful.
So FYI, Sarah's off Monday and Tuesday, so it won't be till
Okay.
Great.
All right,
Well, I want to thank everybody, and don't worry about it. I'm going to have it under control.
okay. All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, have a good rest of the week. Thank you.
It's enough to help.
So next on the agenda would be outside services. Is that, you ready to
Yeah,
go, or
do
should
it,
we?
or
Or do you
you can do the police
Yeah,
department
let's
if
do-
you'd
yeah, let's
like,
do
with the staff here.
Let's
So the
not,
police department while I'm fresh.
yeah, so Chief, we're all set for you.
Do you know if Lieutenant Shepard wanted to be connected for video, or is he's just listening?
Said he's watching?
Yep, I see him.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Lieutenant Shepard, if you want to, just send me a message in the chat if you want me to connect you for audio at any point to jump in.
Because you might have to answer some
Yeah,
of the
he
questions.
might have to talk about like computer and radio. That's his forte.
Okay. Yeah, I'll watch if he has anything.
So Chief, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, thank you. I'm not sure which way we want to start, is with our regular budget or go to our capital first?
Yeah, regular operating.
Okay. Just give a quick update. We're currently at 15 full-time positions filled. We're in the process of swearing in another candidate in 2 weeks. Monday, the 16th, that'll be our newest female, Brittany Lewis. So that'll bring us up to 16 positions. We're in the process of promoting to fill the vacant sergeant's position. We have a second oral board on Tuesday, and then from there we'll go into psychological testing, and then hopefully by the 1st of 2025, I'll make a selection and all that. So we're trying to get the vacancies that need to be filled. We're busy with the businesses. You see my quarterly reports that, crime does not go down, arrests don't go down. but you know, it's doing business here in the community. So that being said, we'll start off on the first page, which would be administration. And what I'm going to do is,
Can you connect? Eric is saying the chat is disabled.
Oh, I just noticed that, yep.
He just messaged me.
did he?
Yeah.
Yep, thank you. Lieutenant Shepard, I'm making you a panelist. You can share your audio and video, up to you, if you want to share your video or not. There we go.
Can you guys hear me?
Oh, there he is.
Thank you.
Lieutenant Shepard is greeting us today on Zoom. To my left is my administrative assistant, Ashley Lazat. In addition to being my administrative assistant, she has taken on various other components of our operations here to free up the offices. So she's fingerprint certified, VIN certified. She works in the evidence room. So rather than tying up an officer to fingerprint somebody, she's able to do that for us. So trying to keep the officers, the uniform division out in the field as much as possible, while coming back and forth, meeting with the public. So that's helped us out big time. Going back, the first page would be our administration, police administration, which includes myself, my lieutenant, my administrative assistant. Basically, there's nothing, the biggest increase would be down in the bottom, telephone postages. We've been trying to get a better understanding of what the costs are. And the way they come in is, they don't come in all at the same time, they come at various times during the year. So we're trying to estimate that. So we believe we've got that on a good hold right now, and so it's working out good.
We didn't go up on too many of our line items. A lot of it has to do just with inflation, which is why we had to go up on a couple things. For instance, janitorial services, we had to go up a little bit just because Janitech did increase their monthly cost. So, and then for this one, our police building maintenance is probably the biggest
Right.
one that we have. This fiscal year, we've run into several issues that we've had to fix, so we went up a little bit on this because we're probably gonna have some next fiscal year.
Yeah, the building is almost 17 years old, and with a building, you run into problems. This past week, we had to replace the radiator yesterday with our generator. We're in the process of replacing the rear door of our building because of rot. We're concerned about the HVA system, air conditioner system up on the roof. Then the roof itself, we're maintaining that. We've had some minor leaks in it that's been repaired very quickly. So again, we're trying to do our housekeeping and keep an eye on everything to make sure that we don't come in one day and, you know, we're under 6 feet of water. So we're doing our best. The next is communication, which is our dispatch. A little over a year and a half ago, we ran into an issue where state police decided not to dispatch for us anymore, so we had to come up quickly to come up with a plan. Essex originally offered to cover the shifts that state police weren't going to cover. We negotiated a deal with them to cover it on a month-to-month basis, but we felt that it wasn't doing the way we wanted, so we moved our dispatch operations into the town of Essex PD, and that's worked out good. We got, you know, 2 dispatchers on at all time, pretty much at least 18 to 20 hours a day. The hours that we only have a single dispatcher on is the hours that we feel are not demands for us, where we get a multitude of calls. The only thing when that happens is usually inclement weather, or we have an incident going on where it's tying up everybody. So we're operating with 3 full-time dispatchers and a couple of part-timers. We tried advertising this year to get additional part-time dispatchers, and it's like anything else, trying to get people to work, and that's not helping out. We've had discussions about possibly adding another full-time, but where the economics right now with you know, that's something we'll look at over the next year to see how we can justify the cost of adding another full-time position over there.
Well, that makes, that was going to be kind of my question, because if you add up the dispatch salary and the overtime dispatch, that's $300,000 for 3 people. That's a pretty good wage.
Yeah.
70,000 is pushing up to what you could afford to hire a full-time person and break even.
But even like looking at full-time, we're not getting the bodies.
Right.
It's just like a totality of, you know, law enforcement, public safety, people don't wanna be in it. You know, our well has been dry for, you know, we're not getting 6 to 10 applicants per job. We're lucky if we get 1, maybe 2. And a lot of the people that we do get, when we interview, we disqualify them, or we feel they're not what we want for our caliber of employees here.
It's a tough job, but that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So the many hats that Ashley wears, Ashley's also a dispatcher.
I dispatched tonight.
Yeah, she's heading over
Oh,
there
my
now,
goodness.
so, and we're in, you know, discussions about our contract with Essex. The town managers are discussing it to keep us going over there.
Computer and radio, I don't know if Eric wants to talk a little bit about this.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you guys. It was very, very, very faint. I'm assuming you turned to me for the computer stuff. So the increase in here is representative of just simply the added cost of things. We're seeing costs go up for our email. We're actually talking about trying to switch to something that would ultimately lead to a little cheaper of a solution, but unfortunately, it's going to take us a little bit to get there and line up all the licensing. So I foresee a little bit of an increase at least in the short term on that. And of course, the cost of goods is going up on computers. I just saw 20% on a bunch of Dell purchases that I made outside of the agency, and I'm probably going to continue to see that. So that represents that increase in that. And we've tried to defer a little bit by holding off on certain replacements, and unfortunately at some point it's going to come to a head on that. Radio repair is the next line. Same deal with that. We're seeing Motorola increases of 20% or more, on top of which quite a bit of the system is aging itself. We're working on a project that I'm sure the town manager is going to advise everyone on, to revamp the communication system entirely. But in the meantime, we just simply have to pour some money into what we have to keep what we have working and functional for a public safety system.
Any questions so far?
The next one that had to go up was the chin unit for special investigations.
Which is-
So we don't really have a say in that, unfortunately.
How do they determine who pays what in that? Is it number of cases or population of town?
I don't know. Do you know that, Eric?
Eric Shepherd.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you guys. It's very, very faint. On the koozie model, I'm not sure what they're using for a funding model on that. I know that we simply get the invoice from them annually. I can certainly dig into that and ask them how they're assessing that.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Yeah,
What is
sorry,
this?
I don't.
I just wonder, what is it usually the special units? What do we use?
So, any
Date-
type of child crime,
sex
sex
crimes,
crime, anything
and all
like
that.
that, we might take the initial call, but then it gets transferred over to them to deal with.
Okay, thank you.
The next one, investigation expenses, we went up a little bit in this one, mostly because our language line, we are using more and more, and it's can be pretty expensive sometimes, so that's why we had to go up a little bit on that one.
We started that a little over a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Where we're finding people that are not speaking the English language, so we reach out to dispatch, they contact the language, what language we want, and we put the person online. So we can ask questions, they'll interpret it for us and all that, so it's helped out a lot.
It's been a great resource, it's just a little expensive.
Sure.
And we monitor, you know, we based on case, so we know exactly who used it, how long they used it, and what was the purpose of it. Even, it's not just like in the building. We've had case calls in the field where we had to reach out to them, you know, so it's a good product, it helps us. So that's where everybody's going this day.
With the addition of hopefully a detective
Yep.
in the near future, how will that will not impact the special investigation fees or any of that, or?
We would look into that, you know, as we grow. We would love to have people involved in special units. Why pay if we get the bodies to do it? So, but it's a small steps.
Yeah.
You know, the thing is that a lot of agencies don't have the resources that they can send somebody over there. So you might have, and they've cut back a lot over there with Burlington PD. You know, their staff is, you know, so, but it's necessary, because you need a special investigator to sit down with a victim and understand what they're going through. So, you know, it's like anything else, you know, it's, you know, we look at our build out with the study, the Jim Baker study, that, you know, eventually we want that. We want to have specialized units here. So it's going to be a work in progress. The next page is our patrol services, and we're in the process of going into collective bargaining shortly. You know, you mentioned about the overtime with dispatch, and same thing with this. We try to make sure that we can gauge. The unfortunate part is that the people that we're short-staffed right now, we still have to fill those positions that person would have. And, you know, if you look at, you know, all the time off people have, you have to fill it. You know, today, prime example is that we're down one body, and, you know, the rest of the officers have to pick up the workload.
Yeah, in budgeting, it's just tricky to make sure you don't double count it, because if you're going to budget assuming you're fully staffed, but if you're going to do overtime assuming you're not fully staffed, then that's
Oh, yeah.
double. But that's your reality, is that level of you have to like make up your overtime number, even though you haven't been fully staffed as long as I've been involved in this. So.
Yeah, and the thing is that it's just like, you know, we don't have a magnitude of a lot of people here. So in addition to, you know, vacation time, you got training time they have to go. We got to allot 30 hours per year per officers for, it's mandated 30 hours. So the state does not have a lot of places here that we can train. So a majority of us are going out of state to get classes. You know, we've worked with a company that they'll come in and teach in our building, and if we allow them to come in, we get free seats there. So it's nice, but if it's on the person's day off, then we have to pay them the overtime to come to the class. So,
Right.
you know, it's just, you know, the way the system is working. We do our best to, you know, go from there. As we continue down, the vehicle expenses, as the lieutenant mentioned, is that everything's going up. You know, so vehicle expenses, even though the majority of the cruisers are still under warranty, tires not under warranty, oil changes not under warranty, those type of things. So, and so we, every time we look at tires, we've changed where we used to change them twice a year. So we take the regular tires down, put snow tires on, and then take the snows off, put regular. So we're going all seasons now. So we only have to do it once a year. So again, that saves us a few dollars. So we're doing our best to keep our costs down as much as possible.
We're seeing brakes and rotors especially go up. I'm sure everyone. Fortunately, I don't know if there's any way for us to get control on that in any other way other than just simply increasing the budget for it.
Or electric vehicles.
Big price.
Yeah, right.
The next one that we went up on a little bit would be training and conferences. Like Chief said before, the officers need 30 hours of training each year to keep their certification, and there's just no trainings in Vermont, so we have had to send them out of state. I did this year attempt to try to get trainings in our building so we could get those free seats. It didn't work. We ended up having to cancel all the trainings because nobody would sign up for them, which is kind of a bummer. So we had to go up a little bit just so we can send people out of state to get those training hours that they need. And then equipment and uniforms. Again, inflation is just a huge one. It costs from head to toe to outfit an officer about $3,500 to get them out on the road and get all the equipment that they need. So as we're hiring, we're gonna need that money to get them
The big jump
outfitted.
there too is the body worn camera lease
Yes.
is in that line, so.
And shortly, we will have our taser out in the field. We're finalizing the training details on that. What we do now is that for, when we have a new recruit, we drive down to Massachusetts, a company called Trippies in Worcester. And they get there, they size everything, they put the patches on, they tailor everything, and within 6 hours, they have all their equipment, their shoes, their boots, and all that. So it helps us out because there's nothing here, you know, in Vermont, but it works out great. So it's helped us out. But we figured out that how much it costs per officer, so it's not cheap.
The body worn cameras, just on that, they're being used, they're operational, everything is, yep.
Yep.
Okay, great.
That's the improvement we made.
We pushed those out as quickly as we could, post July 1. And the tasers, we were just simply waiting on them to arrive in the training. So that was the increase that we saw in that line item. And we are most definitely using them. They have been very successful and they've been phenomenal.
And that'll be in the budget every year now, correct? We'll be able to keep that? Yes.
Yep.
The next page is programs, and the top one is the outreach, community outreach, and you've noticed that's a drastic increase. They diverted one of the grants to another part of their operation, so we have to pick up the missing money, shared amongst the communities that are using that. We're trying to come up with a formula on how we come up with the funds, so it's a work in progress, you know, so, and everybody's involved. It's not just law enforcement, it's the managers, it's the city managers, the town managers, the administrative assistants, everybody's working together to come up with it. It's necessary. You know, it's probably maybe once a day we might have to reach out to outreach. So it's a good investment. As we talk about the study, with the Baker study, is that included in that is looking at our own, you know, social worker. So, but as we build that out, we need to have those people here. So it's a good program. All the officers love it. It's not where it's mandated they ride with us. They go out on calls themselves. If they want us to come, we can come. If they don't want us to come, we rely on them. So it's self-sufficient, and they get along with everybody here in the building. The next one down is canine control. We actually negotiated with the new vet 2 doors down, and it helps us out greatly. Because we used to have to drive out through Colchester on the last one, and you lose an officer for that time frame where they have to go. Here is, you know, we have a key to the building where the kennel is, so it's worked out great. And they're good
awesome.
neighbors for us. And then the community justice program, CJ, that also went up. If not following the papers, that program is going to be diverted to the Attorney General's office starting July of 20. And they're still working out the fine details, but again, our cost is going up.
Actually, it's not going up, right? I mean, it's not going up in our budget, so if you
Yeah,
explain this to me and I can't remember the answer.
Yeah, I left it level in the budget. We're getting some contribution from Heinsberg and Richmond. I know, I think it was Richmond was gonna increase their contribution to us a couple $1,000s. I held this for right now, just with the uncertainty of where that funding's gonna land. We've been having a series of meetings this fall with the Attorney General's office, other managers, and CJC directors. It's working how this grant funding is going to be allocated and what those systems look like, if there's some efficiencies of service that can be considered. Ultimately, we won't know what the state grant funding component of this looks like till the state budget is approved in the spring. I've advocated to the AG's office to think about if there's really structural funding shifts, maybe give it another year until FY27 so we can make some planning efforts around that. But again, this is a critical service. It's we do the pre-trial diversion here. Us in South Burlington have been really successful in that. Other centers take on some other programs, but it's being looked at right now for the grant funding component. We've typically we've overmatched for years what that grant requires, along with the in-kind of the space and the staff support. So that's something that will continue to evolve over the year, and I'll keep the board updated as there's more clarity as well.
And they were just able to fill their vacant full-time position, so they have a new,
Yay, finally.
so, and it's worked out the transition from second floor to first floor for them.
Oh, right.
So it helps them out. It's not as strict. They don't have to be escorted around the building. They come in, meet with them. There's bathrooms on the first floor. They don't have to be escorted to the bathroom. So it's worked out. It's more of a positive, for the people who come in. The sad part about it, again, is that majority of the people that we're dealing with for CJC don't have transportation. They don't have that commodity to get in and drive here. We've lost the bus stop that used to be outside this building. So that's why CJC is, using 66 Zephyr Street as a meeting spot. And once we get our storefront operation, that'll be because it's right on a bus line. So that's how also, again, everything's a work in progress, but, we just gotta get, the appropriate funding and all that. So that's where we are with CJC. And that's it on my general budget. Sure, if anybody has a question.
Questions from the board?
Discuss things.
Yes, so this budget the increases because we approved a half-year budget, half-year position for the detection cost, right? So that's full year, so that's why it went up. I'm, to throw this out there for further discussion eventually, I don't want to lose momentum on this project. I was kind of hoping we would see another position, the next most important position, so even if it's a half year, but just to give it a little bit of thought, at some point we should circle back around, because if we keep putting off the ads when budgets are hard, we'll be doing this for 10 years, so.
I agree with you.
Yeah, so if we could just, we don't need to, you need to tell me what it's today, you guys probably need to discuss it, but, whatever, I think that I would be interested in seeing if we could figure out how to put another step in place, what it would look like, what it would be.
Sure. Yeah, and certainly that's the top ads in the budget, that's the top of my list, and certainly agree. Keeping the momentum here is really important. I think we've got a lot of we have great officers in our department, great staff in our department. We understand what we need to do to grow in the future and find a pathway to get there.
And we've had discussions, the town manager and I, about what I would look at, what we need and all that. But we also need other resources within town government to assist us. I know there's discussion about HR position again, but I think it's just like for a PD, when people talk about like what do we do and all that, I would encourage the 5 of you to spend a couple hours with us in the field, take a ride with us, sit in a parking lot of Marshall's or Walmart or Home Depot and, see what we deal with in the day in and day out. It's again, the chair was with me when we met with the governor on his trip outside the Capitol, and we talked about mental health issues and all that, and that things don't happen every day 7 to 3 or 8 to 4, 9 to 5. They happen at 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, or 3 o'clock in the morning, and we're asking all that. So it's things that we need, and I know recently we've been having a lot of issues with family medical leave stuff, and that's tasking the staff over here to work with us on that when people are out with injuries and issues and all that. So it's a combination. This town is growing, and I agree with you that the more you put it back another year or another year and a half, it hurts how we want to do, because the town's not stopping. This town's not stopping building. We're not stopping businesses coming in here to set up shop here. We're not stopping people to come in shopping here, staying here, and all that. But if you looked over the last few years, we're doing our best to keep up with the growth. But I agree with you that we need to stay focused on that. We invested in that study, and I agree with it. We can't say, okay, put it on the side and we'll come back to it. But we are going to look at the detective's position. We're going to look at the job description. We do the job description, so when we get ready to go with it, I'm planning to go with it shortly. Once I get all the positions I need, my promotional process and all that, we're gonna look at putting somebody in that position sooner than later.
I agree with you.
Thank you for
Gene.
your support on that.
Well, before you make me too much of a hero, the next, at the end, hour now, I'm gonna say, Eric, this budget's too high. So-
But it helps in retention of the officers that we have too,
Right, right.
morale.
The thing is that I'm not a novice with budgets. So I've done a few of them, but.
Neither is Ashley, obviously. This is a good budget.
But, it just, the same stories, is, no matter where you go with budgets, no matter what community you work in, it's the same. It's a concern how you affect the community, because they're the ones that are paying for these positions.
Right,
So
yep.
we want to make sure that they feel they're getting a good product and they're not being overstretched.
Other questions, or go on to capital?
All right, so with capital, what we did, we looked at what we have in our capital project, and there's a few things that we needed, to keep funding, and that's our cruiser account.
It's page 60, right?
It-
Page 60.
Yeah, you starting at equipment, chief?
Oh,
Yeah, we're in,
We can go back to buildings after.
huh?
Yeah, we can go back to buildings after equipment.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, let's get the page. Yeah,
Yeah, we're in equipment.
page 61.
Nope, you're good. You're
Yep,
good.
you're good.
Okay,
Buildings comes first.
Eric, that's
We're good.
confusing you. I
We're
knew where
good.
you were.
Got too many numbers I'm throwing around.
Nope, you're good right there.
okay.
Yep.
I agree. Cruisers is good.
So, like Lieutenant Shepard's saying, everything's going up. Cruisers have gone up big time. And getting the cruisers, the availability of the cruisers, it's really difficult. So what we did this year, we attended a vendor show down in Massachusetts, and we hooked up with a lot of the auto dealers down in Mass. And they hooked us up with this consortium about doing bidding. And they write the bids, and we pay a fee, a yearly fee. It's very low, and it gives us access to all the dealerships down in Massachusetts. So we can walk on their lot and decide which ones we want. So it's worked out good, and that has helped us. And the vehicles that we replace, when we get rid of them, we auction them off, we sell them at auction. And this year, we've done very well on purchases, it exceeded some of our expectation, what we get. So this account, the cruiser account, or fleet vehicle account, is important, so that's why we concentrated on this one, and a few of the other ones, we didn't fund them. For the yearly, we normally how we fund them out, but the cruiser account was the big one in our band, but
And then while we're on cruisers, chief, if I may, the request from the department was 220,000. I've got it 185. I tried to push that higher, but I agree with the department with their needs there. I did that as a start here. I've got 125 from the general fund, and then still using 60 from fund balance and ARPA. This is one of the areas. Most of the other accounts I've shifted more to just the general fund, but this one has a little bit more of a gap to shift over the next year or two. I'll talk about it during capital, but looking to have a mechanism with all the equipment replacement can be funded through our general fund year to year as we need to grow these equipment replacement accounts. But with trying to balance everything out, this is where I landed on this one to start the discussion. Sorry, Chief.
the next one is our traffic safety equipment. This year, we decided not to fund for FY. So normally, and if you look at the manager's approval, we've kept that zero over the next few years. Our speed monitors, we maintain them. They're actually in a heated storage facility right now, 6 months, so they're not getting outside, they're not in our back of our building or someplace getting, ruined. So we currently have 3 of the trailers that you see out and about, and our speed signs on some other streets, and so we download them once we have them out there on a monthly basis, I think.
The fixed ones, we download quarterly, and the carts themselves, we download as we move them, which could be anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks, depending on what the demand is. And we've really been able to stretch the life of those by storing them inside in a heated facility. That we determine the cost of storing all 3 of them for the winter is far less expensive than having to replace them, at half the life due to the road salt.
The next one is police technology, and I will defer to Lieutenant Shepard on this one.
Hang on a second, I'm just getting to it here. I got one screen. So we work on replacing the network server every 5 years. We recently embarked on a project that was grant funded to replace all of the cameras at the PD, install them at the fire department, and upgrade some at town hall. So we were able to lower some costs here. So we asked for $5,000 this year as opposed to the $10,300, only because we recently replaced that video equipment, and we're sort of able to push it back and defer and use that money elsewhere, such as the vehicles where we really do need it sooner than later.
Didn't we see cameras somewhere else today?
Yep, so this covers the police station, and then they're broken out in the other departments. So we have the town hall and the annex, and that's separate lines.
The next one is police firearms. Again, we zeroed that one out again because we just purchased them 2 years ago. Life expectancy is probably 7 to 9 years. You look at the trends, you look at what the new buzzword is in firearms and all that, but this one worked out good for us. We were able to trade, and we got a good trade-in value for them, so it worked out good. Everybody likes them. So
I'm a lot more comfortable with you trading out vehicles than guns, but I'm assuming you're doing it appropriately.
and this one is basically, we mentioned developing the building maintenance in my general budget. We're trying to be ahead of the curve, so when we have the need to replace whatever break, and we found that out, like I said, with the generator.
Oh, hang on a second, let me get to the right page. Buildings?
Page 25.
I think we're ready.
So we just, again, most of the stuff in this building is, the building was built in 2006/2007. Here we are at 2024, so it's 17 years now that those have been up on the roof, or the furnace, the AC unit. So we want to make sure that we have some money in there in case something really happens.
And as Bruce mentioned this morning too, we have the building contingency fund that can help any buildings, but this is more as well with the proactive replacement of assets as they come up. And I put 25,000 from the ARPA account in here as I was looking, same kind of trimming down the operating costs in areas where we could to try to use some of the ARPA money in some of these accounts that we need to have funding in. But one strategy I took was to try to do that here, but again, this is just a one-year trade-off with that, because we'll need to have a good funding in the operating budget year for that. So certainly look at that funding ratio as the board works through the budget here as well.
The next one is the police station lighting replacement. That's in my pile, so that's Melinda's.
Page 26.
Yeah. Do you want to
This one's
speak on that?
Yeah, this is one Melinda put together for police station, fire station, the annex last year. No funding attached to it right now, but certainly as you think about energy efficiency with buildings that operate 24 hours a day, I'd say our public safety buildings would be a priority to look at for the lighting replacements as we get there.
And the final one in the police department's capital is the radio tower and equipment, and I'll defer to either you or Lieutenant.
Yep. Yeah, and I think Yeah, I actually pulled this into the manager's office as a large capital projects, page 34. So no funding attached to it just yet, but the board allocated $50,000 last year of our ARPA, or Community Projects Funds money, to advance this project through the permitting phase at the Public Utilities Commission. Lieutenant Shepard is working with Assistant Manager Aaron Dickinson and a legal team to work on getting the application together next year, I think is our target. So we need to get that approval from the Public Utilities Commission. We have the lease on the site on Old Creamery Road. We want to have our state permitting for that approved before we look for the funding. It's going to be the tower itself will be over $1 million, but then we also need to think of all the different components as well that we've shared with the board the last couple of years. Lieutenant Shepard, feel free to jump in as we look at repeaters, microwaves. This critical telecommunication equipment is reaching its end of life. Town hasn't had a capital savings program for this previously. So, our goal is to get this where it needs to be. It will address coverage deficiencies, and then the town will need to plan moving ahead to replace that equipment over a life cycle cost.
This is a significant project, and it's a lot of permitting, a lot of planning ahead, and then all of a sudden we'll come to the point where we can confidently go to the board here and say, this is the project, this is what it's going to accomplish, this is the cost, and these are the improvements. So we are right in the middle of that kind of permitting phase and working with legal on that project.
This is in the $1 million range, though, right?
Yeah, probably upwards of $3 million when all the components are included. It could be
Correct.
something that's phased in with the tower first, and then equipment over a couple of years. But it's something that needs to get done. It needs to get done in the short term for where that equipment is right now.
What would the height of this tower be?
I think just under 200 feet is what we're looking at. And the height is the critical piece to reach the areas of the southern part of town where we have some coverage challenges at times. And we also have to contend with the airport flight path as well. So this is the only location in town that will work after a lot of work by Lieutenant Shepard on this. And we had approval from the FAA for this location. We had to let that lapse, but we've been told to reapply when we're ready, when the permit's ready, to then just reopen that approval window for that site. It's within like you got vectors of the flight path, and it's in an area that's just barely within where we can use it.
It's very, very, very tight, like within 50 feet, kind of tight.
Yeah, originally the town had contemplated the top of Nob Hill for this facility, and we got a big no from the FAA on that. So then we had to look at other solutions.
I think the plane could just go around it.
Those F-35s are pretty nimble,
They could
aren't
go
they?
right by it.
Further questions from the board?
Thank you for being so mindful of, the challenging year, obviously, budget-wise across the board and in developing this budget.
Like I said, this is not my first one.
Yeah.
I've dealt with level funding for quite a few years, so,
Yeah.
what I ask is what I need. There's no extra stuff in there,
Yeah.
no trinkets, so. But we
Appreciate
work
it.
good together, Lieutenant, my administrative assistant, the town manager, Shirley, we all understood what the bottom line needed to be, and we all,
Like,
Yeah,
a lot of it was just inflation. That's why we had to go up on a lot of
Yeah.
things. That's it.
Right, and it's the same across
Yeah.
that's not unique to the police.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, our personal budgets too, right? So, yeah.
This is probably a Eric question, but our property and casualty insurance went up like 15 to 16% everywhere. Is that an actual quote, or is that just like it happened? Because I thought it was a big step up last year, too.
Yeah, it's pretty close to the actual now. We just got our bills this week. When I was finishing this up before Thanksgiving, I asked Passive to give me the estimate. We had built in some increase, and there was a little extra to put in at the end. What drives that, the workers' comp, is all based on payroll as well, and then by type of employment class for higher risk ratios. So the increase in wages has correlation there. They also use an experience mod based on our if there's workplace injuries, and I think our mod is a little bit over 1 right now. If it's over 1, there's a little bit more of a charge. If it's under 1, then you get a little more of a credit. And these are rolling 3 years based on experience. So we had a few claims the last couple of years, some things we couldn't avoid, some things that are teachable moments. But as we continue to work through that, it's standing up more capacity for staff safety committee. We do a lot of that check-in after those things happen right now, but there's always room to grow that program. On the property side as well, I think I'm on the insurance board that sets these rates, and we had some increase on the property side, but not a whole lot at the board level. But then we update our valuations every year as well to make sure those are accurate. So there's also an experience modification on the building and equipment component as well. I'd have to look and get our final broken down invoice that'll come out this week. That'll have the level of detail by area on it.
I just know that when I do budgets for a different municipality, we don't they don't usually have an outlook to give you for the next year, so you kind of guess. I just wanted to know, because am I right in thinking that we had a big step up last year too?
Yeah, we had a big step up. Part of that was driven by, we found our building values, some were undervalued by quite a bit. So that gave us a big hit for an increase there last year.
And Gene, our insurance is a calendar year, so we're still making an estimate about the first part of the next year because we don't have that information. So we look at historical average of what the increase is. So.
Yeah, and the nice thing about the pooled risk with the other municipalities is there's contribution credits from past years. I think we're getting like a $25,000 or $30,000 contribution credit that helps make it not quite as bad.
No, 16% is a big hit to make up somewhere else. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lieutenant Shepard.
Have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you, everyone.
Same to you.
Tell your mom my condolences.
Yeah.
I'll go back and forth for the
Yeah.
rest of it.
Yeah, get comfortable.
So outside services?
I'll pull that one up. So this part of the budget is a number of different allocations for funding. Let's find my section here. Services. Starts on page 83. So we have different sections: land and housing, health, regional services, social services, and transportation. I'll start with the land and housing. This is where the Environmental Reserve Fund is, and this is certainly one for further discussion by the board. My objective in putting this budget together was to leave some funding in there, and as I was working with my bottom line, I had to trim some areas, and I ended up zeroing this account out in the general fund as a starting point. I knew the board would want this to be an area for discussion by the select board of how this funding occurs. This is general fund transfer into it. You certainly have at your disposal other means to think about by using things like fund balance, community projects fund, and then discussion on looking if there's a separate tax levy just for this. And as I share with the board, I got some legal analysis on the extra tax levy component, and that would be something that we have to be voted on annually. There's not a provision for an evergreen taxation approval in state statute. Town may be able to consider a charter amendment for something like that. There's no enabling statute in state statute for that specifically. But it is an option on an annual basis that the voters would need to approve each town meeting.
Which is why the ERF would be a good candidate for that, because if they didn't get funded one year, it wouldn't be like we would have to lay somebody off.
Yes, as a reserve.
Right.
Yeah. The current balance in there is about $570,000 in that fund. And we keep those funds invested and to have that money work for us well it's not utilized. Affordable Housing Trust has been funded for a couple years, but we are going to be getting that funding stream from the inclusionary zoning, so that'll be a good infusion into that account.
We hope.
We hope.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's a good.
That's right, it's a good,
You know,
bad thing,
if we're
right?
not getting a lot of these, more of the houses
Right.
built and not in lieu of, but we'll see at least some stream into that account, and you'll have back before you in the new year consideration of finalizing the use for that account that you saw from Melinda. Our attorney's giving out a review right now. The health section, this has to UVM Home Health and Hospice, formerly VNA. And I should say, in this section, we included this year, we get request letters from a number of organizations. So those are included in here as well, so you can see kind of firsthand what the asks were. And as I was looking at this and challenging for all these organizations right now and thinking about where the town wants to be and what it wants to grant out versus spending on operations internally, and a lot of these organizations provide services to the residents of the town cannot provide in-house. So they provide really good service, but it's also trying to determine what the select board wants to allocate to these organizations. So they're not big numbers, but I just held home health and hospice level where it was last year. They'd asked for a couple $1,000s more. As we get into regional services, those are fixed, like the Regional Planning Commission. The Winooski Valley Park District was another one where they've asked for a few $1,000s more. In this draft, I've held it from the last year. Not a lot of money, but trying to find a few $1,000s in different places potentially. The county tax, I know that's an estimate, right, Shirley? We like a 5% increase there is
Yep.
historically where our allocation goes. Greater Burlington.
What does that pay for?
Sheriffs and county courthouse.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
It's not an optional tax.
No.
They pay whatever they say.
Get a
it is.
bill.
Trying to figure out, like, we don't have a whole lot of county government or county services, so I was a little bit.
Side judges.
Yeah, judges, yeah. Greater Burlington Industrial Corporation, we've historically given $2,000 there to support them. I zeroed that out for a year, up for discussion. There are letters in the packet. Vermont League of Cities and Towns as a member. They assess that, I think, based on, I think it's a per capita assessment. The steeple contribution, after the Federated Church steeple had to be replaced a few years ago, the town clock is inside that, so the town participated, but we didn't have any money saved towards that participation. So Rick McGuire started this after that to put a little bit money into a seeded account or actually we give it to the church just to say, here's our fair share for the future needs of that where the town clock is kept. Lake Iroquois Association, they have a letter in there as well. I've taken their funding down a little bit this year. That's up for discussion as well. A big one here to discuss is the social services organizations. We have the committee that, a lot of these requests go to that committee. They're for smaller amounts of money at times, $500,000. Certainly a good program that the town provides. But I've trimmed it for a starting point here. Could also look at community projects funds or increase this back in the general fund. Let's put it here for discussion as I was working to find areas where I could trim a little bit in the budget. Then community partnerships, that funds things. The town contributes towards the town band, and that's the main part of that line. Then transportation, that's our allocations for Green Mountain Transit. You've heard updates about Green Mountain Transit's current financial situation. Our fixed route assessment is at $240,000. And then for the ADA program, for that SSTA, they subcontract, that's gone up about $15,000. And the elderly and disabled transportation program, that's level funded. They recommend, they send a formal letter. They haven't sent that yet, but they supplied those numbers to me via email to plug into the budget. They've also made the special assessment request of $29,000 that each town would need to approve in order to assess it. I did not include that in this draft budget. To the board's discretion whether to add that.
Was it the ADA or the elderly and disabled that they said that because they canceled a route between here and Essex, that there may be some people who are no longer eligible for these side routes?
I believe so. It's a distance from the nearest stop, so
Yeah.
that connecting bus down Route 2A, that could change some eligibility and some needs.
And yet our assessment didn't go down, so.
No.
Do we know, like, the Lake Iroquois Association, they've done a pretty good job of, in the last few years, with, managing this really important resource for us, I think. Do we know if they have a fund balance? I mean, is this going to keep them from being able to do important work?
Well,
Surely.
yeah, Eric and I chatted about that. So this particular money in the budget is primarily used, so there's a greeter program grant, and that's when they're educating people and washing the boats at the lake. So pretty much all of this money is used for greeter wages, because the grant that we also get for the lake for the greeter program doesn't cover it all. So that's been really, the town's contribution has been covering the wages. So I had that discussion with Eric. Will it affect them? It'll probably have some impact on them.
The other piece is the town has managed the grant funding for them for a number of years. I know it's, I don't know if you can quantify with the hours you spend on it, Shirley.
In the budget, I spent about 15 hours on it, and that we can't include the time that you spend putting the proposal together, and there was a lot of back and forth between myself and LIA when we're putting the budget together. That's probably another 5 hours. There's a whole new group this year, so it's been a longer process. But that, and, we do pay, so not only do we manage the grants here, it has to come through a municipality, but we also pay all the payroll through the town. Of course, we're taking care of all their finance. We pay some of the expenses we pay out up front, some of them they pay, and then we reimburse based on what the grant will allow. The grant also changed the funding allocation, so you used to get a flat amount, period, and that's what you got, and we always spent more than that. So now they've changed it to say, well, here's your award, but you're only going to get the percentage of your actual expenses over what your budget was, that percent times your award. So you're actually, unless you spend 100%, you're not going to get your full amount of the award. Yeah. For example, this year they received $15,000 towards lake management, and that's the Selectboard treatment. That was $42,000, but they also had DASH, which is diver assisted suction harvesting. Because the Selectboard worked so well, they didn't do any DASH. So that is going to negatively affect them in what they're going to get reimbursed out of that $15,000. So
Makes sense from the other side of the world.
Yes.
Paying that money, why should I pay money to subsidize something else? So, but yeah, that's a little tougher.
Will we be hearing from them before we conclude the budget?
Yeah, I can certainly have them in. I know they weren't able to make it in last year with some scheduling things, but I can certainly invite them in for January.
When I was a kid, we used to spend a lot of time down there.
Does
Me too.
Heinsberg? Oh, I'm sorry.
I said, me too. That's where I took swimming lessons.
When you weren't going to the movies, apparently.
Yeah.
Does Heinsberg kick in for Lake Iroquois maintenance?
They do. I don't know the number. Maybe you do, Shirley. With
I don't know the number, but I know they do give a donation directly to Lake Iroquois as well. Richmond does too. Ours is the largest.
Well,
Last I saw
and
the
beaches.
numbers, yeah, and I'm not sure of St. George. It's just such a little piece of St. George, but definitely Heinsberg and Richmond kick in something.
I've been approached the other towns, but our in-kind financial management services for a number of years. The town's done well to provide that, but there are other towns that play a role in ordering the lake. So
Right.
at some point, maybe having a rotational for that would be helpful for us here.
I was going to say the other factor is we also are part of LIRD, which is the Lake Iroquois Rec District. So when we look at overall contributions to the lake, so our buildings and grounds, our public works guys go out, they maintain the building out there, they put the buoys in, and we don't charge anything back. We just do that as part of opening, and we close the building up as well. Plus for LIFD, we pay all of the expenses out of the town, and then we just submit a reimbursement to them. So the town does do a lot to help the lake in general.
Oh, well, that's something, I learned something new. So I assume that that was just part of our rec program, but it's a separate organization that does
Separate government.
separate, oh, good. So,
But they meet, they meet here in our Public Works Department and staff supports them, but, yeah.
so they,
They have a separate board that is their governance for the district there. They have a rep from each town.
and they collect the fees.
Yeah.
Do we have, you pay use-
1,500 we pay towards that.
Yeah, that's in the community, that $6,000 community services support line, that's where that money is with the town band fund.
Yeah.
The beach is essentially a public for the town, but the lake is becoming more of a year-round residence as well. So there's a balance of supporting the year-round residents and supporting the town people that use the lake.
Yeah. Yeah, and that recreation district, the beach is theirs to manage, not the town of Williston's. But, yeah, we as they don't have any staff or capacity, so we help them out in that way.
I'm grateful for that, for the people that live in the south end of town. I don't know how much the rest, I don't know how the new people in town, do they even know? I have a lot of people telling me they don't even know there's a lake over there.
It's heavily, heavily used by
Yeah.
families.
Yeah.
All the
People
rec
with
programs, the
kids.
school summer camps go there weekly. Like, it's used a lot.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went there with the kids when they were little, a lot.
Yeah.
And
Glad to hear that.
That's outside services.
Okay. Last questions on outside services? Not, general administration?
Or capital and debt.
Oh, I'm sorry, right, capital and debt, right.
So Shirley left at your seat this morning a debt schedule. So make it in your packet when we sent it out earlier in the week. So I mentioned this the other night, but you'll see in the coming years, we're starting to get some major bonded debt falling off the debt schedule. Especially between FY '26 and FY '27, nearly $300,000 is gonna roll off. There's some big projects we're talking about between the library, the communications tower. I haven't put those on here just yet for proposed new debt, 'cause they're still very conceptual without numbers attached to them or year estimates. But this gives you an idea for the ambulance and fire engine that are coming up. Just Shirley's programmed those with just an estimate of what the interest may be. Those will go to bond sale to get the final rate. But the big thing are the public safety buildings are going to be paid off the next couple of years here. And those were 3 series of bonds over 2005 to 2007 or 8. Then the sidewalk bond as well from about that time, and the ambulance we purchased back in 2019. That's coming for not this budget we're talking about right now, but the following year. Then certainly as you think about other new debt, possibly the library project, you'd replace some of that debt, but a project like that would add new debt on top of that as well. But just so you're aware in the background, this is part of your balance sheet. It makes up about 6.5% of the general fund right now is debt service. I think then any questions on debt? So then the capital budget and that section of your packet, there's a transmittal memo in there as well. I took some expanded approach on this year as well. It used to be kind of a 2-pager, but I wanted to put more narrative behind this and talk about each of the different sections of this plan. But as I mentioned, looking at overall sustained funding for the capital fund and looking what's transferred in from the general fund year to year for the equipment replacement, and trying to get to a point where that can be stable from the general fund. We've used the fund balance and we've used the ARPA funds the last few years to really help with those increasing costs and needs. one-time building projects, for example, the door locks at the police station. We hired the new fire staff, we bought all their radios and turnout gear using the ARPA funds. But there's continued needs. Just on the equipment side alone is, I think, over $600,000 year to year just to go in the sinking funds. Then you think about the planning ahead for buildings and other elements as well. So I think, let's see, we touched on a lot of these by department review today, but I think I'll mention in that buildings section, I should mention when you're in pages 16 through 19 of your packet, Melinda's been preparing this the last couple of years. It's our building energy use summary by electricity consumption and natural gas consumption, and also data on our town solar arrays, how much we're able to get in net metering credits. So this is always interesting data to look at with our building efficiency and our solar generation. And then page 20 has the summary for buildings with the new by building breakdown. I'm looking at the bottom, the other buildings and general items, and there's not a lot funded this year, but just to flag a couple projects that are in here, the radio tower projects in this section, the community center facility, that the site evaluation process is ongoing for that. I put in to think a few years out is we need to think about the town hall and the town hall annex for space management of staff. I don't know if it's gonna be that much money, I just put a number in there as a placeholder, just thinking of this as a need, but we're essentially out of office space in these two buildings right now. As we think about adding administrative staff in the years to come, just have to have a plan for physical plant for the building where other people would work from. There's potential with Public Works next door at some point to move administrative staff down to the garage on Avenue A. If a community center is built in the future at some point, the recreation staff would likely work out of that building. That's multiple years away. So just to be thinking about that for capital planning purposes. It's nothing I'm recommending doing in the next couple of years anyway, but we have to get creative at times. When Erin came as assistant manager, her office to my left here was a storage closet. And going in, she thought it was going to be just a windowless room. I said, no, it's not the case. It's a nice room. But came up with this idea. Shirley had the idea to have these cabinets built by Chris Stewart in town to move the storage items to these nice cabinets out here. So very creative uses of space, but we have to be thinking to the future of what our needs are. And there was discussion about a solar parking canopy as we were looking at the parking lot. I put a sheet in at the board's request to keep that on the radar. This was able to, with help from Melinda, get a better idea of what that would cost. And I think that is page 38. It's kind of all in for those is $430,000 to $600,000 based on the size. And there's analysis for the generation for kind of the payback period for that based on net metering credits, and it's in the 20-year range or so. But that just gives you an idea what that scope for a project like that looks like. It's in the capital plan. It's not funded, but we have it in the capital plan now as something.
Page
We covered a lot of the other capital through the course of the day, but I'll pause there.
Page 19, you talk about the town hall fields and the public works garage and the solar generated there. Be interesting to see what the cost of that was and the payback time.
Yeah, that's a good question, Mike. We can look back when we purchased the trackers out back here. It was my first year here, 2018 town meeting, and then we purchased last year the roof of the public works garage. So, surely we can.
The solar panel at the Public Works was 125, and I don't remember what the solar panels out back were when we purchased those.
I've learned at home that the trackers, when I purchased them, the cost of solar panels was more expensive. But today the solar panels are much cheaper.
Yeah.
It also depends on whether you get the monocrystalline or the polycrystalline panels, because my old 200-watt panels produced just as much electricity as my 320-watt panels that I replaced them with.
And the town has certainly room to think about additional solar that the town may want to invest in. Thinking about net metering credits that we could take advantage of. I know the Energy Committee's been looking at that off and on as well as part of the Enhanced Energy Plan. But we don't have anything proposed right now, but I know it's as part of their work plan, thinking about solar generation in town, and does the town itself play a role in citing that on town property in the future. That's debt and capital.
Okay. General administration.
So in this part of the budget, I'll give myself a breather and let Shirley go through the finance part.
Okay.
Go ahead.
What page are we looking at?
So we're page 58, Mike?
Oh, okay, I got it. Oh, I see.
So, in the listers, office, a little bit of increase there, as we no longer have the assistant to the assessor and the assistant assessor, because Dick retired, so Michaela, we've combined those into one, and, Michaela is, now the assistant assessor. We gave her a little bit of an increase in her wage. Her hours are still the same. But a big reduction in the contracted assessor. I think you all know Bill is semi-retiring at the end of this year. So he is gonna, we're gonna contract with him to work about 2 hours a week, and that will really be providing assistance to Michaela, because she's very strong on some things, but commercial property, she's still learning. She's been here just 2 years. And Bill has also laid out a plan for Michaela in terms of courses for her to take. And then Bill will come physically be here to help us finalize the grant list and do grievances. So we will still be using his expertise to assist us, to assist Michaela.
His tentative plan is to be wrapped up completely at the end of FY26. So it's a transition year. Bill's been the assessor here for over 20 years now, and looking forward to retirement.
So where it says assistant assessor's salary, is that really the assessor's salary?
Well, we call her the assistant for now, because we look at Bill as the assessor, but,
But we're not paying Bill.
yeah,
Well, that will fall under the contracted,
yep.
the contracted
The
line.
contracted assessor is Bill. For finance, really the only change we have is Christina, who's our assistant treasurer, finance assistant. We increased her hours from 20 to 24. We actually have already done that because we just have a need for her time, and we were using some of Michaela's time that's budgeted for 28 hours in this year, and not really knowing what additional hours Michaela was going to need to do both. We budgeted her for 28, but she's not using them. So we added 4 to Christina because we can really use her time. So that was our only increase there, which also at 24 hours become eligible for retirement. Other than that, just increase the audit fees some, and that's still the town's portion of the audit fees, because I am expecting the audit fees to go up. And there's single audit in there as well, but for FY26, we're also our contract with Burlington Beer Company, so start up with a single audit. We were required to have one at $750,000. That's now up to $1 million. But because of Burlington Beer, we're going to hit that $1 million with no problem, and they'll pay a portion, but there'll still be audit work for us other than just Burlington Beer. So there's a single audit fee included in there as well.
Okay,
And-
interesting. Should they pay for the whole single audit part of the audit.
They might. So I just wanted to cover us.
Unless we're gonna hit it with ARPA money, because I know we're gonna buy the bridge, it's gonna be pretty.
No, we've done that. We did that this year, or
Oh.
24. Remember, we said we took ARPA all into income, and now it's the community project fund, not ARPA.
So we need a single audit this year.
So we need a single audit this year.
I think, Shirley, we can double check the sub-grant agreement with Burlington Beer, but we may have built in that they would pay the full single audit.
Sounds like it.
As part of
Yeah.
that. I remember talking about that. So
Yeah.
we can double check.
Yeah. So whether we call it single audit or regular audit, I am going to request we don't change it, because last year, some of it's our timing and how busy it is, and that, the auditors were just here, not ready, haven't finished closing the books yet. So when they were sent us the final bill, they wrote off like $5,000. And the number of firms that actually do governmental auditing is far and few between, and most of the ones now are out of state, and Sullivan and Powers are a good partner, so I do expect their fees are going to go up. So that's it. Everything else is hasn't increased very much. Other than, I guess I will mention computer applications. I am hoping to move us to, right now we own Nemrick, our software that does all of our payroll, grand list, accounts payable, you name it, it's all through Nemrick. I am hoping to move us to Nemrick in the cloud. We have been scanning all of our invoices into Nemrick, so that while using Nemrick in the cloud, all of our administrators can go out and see those, eliminate questions to Lynn and myself, and then they can see any of their invoices because they're right there. It allows more flexibility when Lynn and I in particular are working at home. The way we have to go in right now is very inefficient, so it'll take care of that as well. And a couple of the open approach fees will fall off if we move to Nemrick in the cloud. There is a one-time conversion fee at $700. It's $20 per person per license. And we have less than 15 people using the system, but there still is going to be about a $6,000 annual maintenance fee, which we have now, and that's not going away. And that is it for finance.
Okay. That would therefore bring us to general administration.
Yep. So this has manager's office and the select board budgets in it. I'm on page 66. I'm just looking at the summary here. The main variance in the manager's office, general overhead section is legal. I've increased that line a little bit. Our actuals last year relate to CBA work. Another contract coming up, and then as the town looks at other projects for legal, there are some projects we've chatted with the board recently about. There's going to be a cost for that, so it's hard to gauge. It was coming in low, so I've increased that about $6,000 right now. That's the main variance in that cost center. The select board budget, for now, putting the July 4th funds in there. Just look back at a few actuals and just took a couple lines down slightly there. Technology, computer applications, seeing an increase there. We have some more costs for our managed services contract. They still give us a good discount as a municipality, but they held their rates for a number of years through the pandemic for us and been very good to us, and they need to build some costs back. Also some increase in security measures for staff, to start doing a two-factor authentication and some other tools that they're suggesting. Anytime we look at the cybersecurity stuff, it's daunting, and just thinking about making sure we're well protected. So that's those dollars are going towards that effort. Then I think the large piece here I previewed for you the other night in the manager's office is revisiting the HR position. Looking at it as an HR manager position that would work within the town manager's office. that would be really responsible for all aspects of HR as a sole position in the town. I've built it in here at 75% funding for the year as I was balancing this budget, and have the person start if this was funded in late September, early October would be the target. And it's looking to really build that capacity in the central administration. Kind of think of that as the nucleus of operations here, town manager's office, finance office. Those offices support all departments in the town and all personnel. And certainly our employees are our priority. We provide services through our employees. And just looking at different initiatives to advance in the manager's office and in the finance office. Anything with personnel takes priority. Growing the capacity there will help us expand into the other initiatives we have going here. Not that we're not doing it right now, but there's only so many hours in the week sometime with the amount of staff we have, and we've got really good dedicated staff here. And we discussed this a lot at the last budget cycle, and felt prudent to bring it back in at this discussion now. Just for reference, Shirley put this together. It takes a look at just some comp data with sizes of staff in nearby towns and what they look like for HR leadership staffing there. So just some data for you to as well as we look at these decision-making models. I did chat with our consultant at Hickok and Boardman. I said, what's the right model here with title, HR director, HR manager. She also brought the senior business partner. We felt HR manager's the right role here. It's not its own department. I think it makes sense for it to be within the town manager's office. But it'd be clear this person would manage all aspects of HR, especially our benefits, oversight and management. Finance would be directly involved with anything that touches the financial aspects of that, with personnel management as well. But certainly this will be one for discussion by the board as we go through the budget process here.
Is that it for general administration?
Yep, that's it.
I just one thing I just want to mention on the 4th of July celebration, this part of the budget, this general administration, is something that people look at and say, you're too fat in general administration, which is why I'm really cautious about adding anything into this part of the budget that we don't have to, because it's only 10 now, but it could be 25 again, right? And all of a sudden, people are looking at it going, wow, this is a big percent. If you start adding things, all of a sudden it's like, this is a big percent of your spending that's going to overhead, as opposed to the rec department. Sure. So I really don't agree with putting it in here, especially since we're not moving all the staff. This is just the out-of-pocket cost. So I kind of don't understand Todd's idea about it being multiple pieces of the department. I mean, this is a recreation program, and it should be there, in my opinion. But it doesn't really matter. It's the same amount of money at the bottom line. I just don't understand why it's getting put in Selectboard. For the record.
It's not like you're gonna manage it.
I hope not.
Yeah.
You're gonna like the fuses this year, didn't you know that?
I heard that. We used
Yeah,
to-
we're all chipping in here.
You got the short
That'd be
straw.
the exciting part. I'd love to do that.
Have at it.
Really long match.
So you're not necessarily, it's more about the placement of this budget item than.
Well, the point I'm making right now is
Right.
is about the placement.
Yeah.
I don't know why we moved it from rec to here. Doesn't make any sense to me. We should move it back.
No, and I agree that in terms of how it looks and where it is, that
We don't need any extra costs in general administration.
Yeah. Is it hard to move back?
Takes a couple keystrokes on
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
It's a policy decision, so appreciate your feedback.
I will have to redo all of my scribbles on the map though, because I added it back there to do the numbers. So that's okay. I'm willing to do that. I did.
get you some extra scratch paper.
I did pencil this year.
So does that bring us to revenue?
It does.
Okay.
You've heard all the expenses, and now how are we going to balance that budget here? So I previewed most of this the other night as well. It's looking at the property tax levy and looking at local option tax. We trued up the local option tax a bit last year. we increased that $500,000 based on trying to get it more in line with where those are coming in year to year. I do anticipate the League of Cities and Towns will be advocating the state to be looking at that funding formula. I had a discussion with some colleagues there yesterday, and likely have a call next week with all towns who are local option tax towns about what they're preparing for some legislation proposals. The ratio is 70% to the town, 30% to the state on the local option tax levy. The advocacy is going to be to shift that ratio in the coming session. If that was successful and the legislature agree with it and the governor, then there's potential the town would see the local option tax revenue increase next year as we have more of a share of that. So that's lots to be discussed for that still. But that's kind of where that is from at least our League of Cities and Towns approach there. There's also the state has pilot funds that are in excess that are funded through the local option tax. So there's going to be some advocacy looking to refund those excess pilot funds back to towns. But again, that's just advocacy at this point and not decided upon. So I'll mention that as an aside. The tax revenue piece is the major component of funding here. I mentioned the other night, looking to be mindful of what's used from the unassigned fund balance, and also increasing the capital contribution after the budget failed last year. Projecting this kind of 4-cent increase, about $39 per hundred of assessment. Sorry, 39 cents rather. That'd be quite high. If it's 39 per hundred. 39 cents per hundred of assessment. You think about 1.5 cents of that is attributed to the changes in here to the fund balance usage and the increase in capital. So one way to think about it is 4 cents. About 1.5 cents of that is the capital, and the revenue piece is kind of what was changed out with the budget that didn't pass a town meeting last year. And 2.5 cents of that as towards the new spend moving forward. That'll certainly be a policy piece of discussion that I'm sure the board will have a lot of thoughts to work through there. And then as we look with the other revenue sources, there's not a lot of big changes here. We talked about the fire or the ambulance revenue this morning. Our investment revenue, we've got really good CDs the last couple of years, but those rates are starting to come back down, so we haven't really changed that line much as they reach their maturity dates within this fiscal year. And then as we do fiscal year 2027, that number will probably start to drop as those CDs are renewed at lower rates. Looking a little further downstream here. The big thing in Williston is we've got that low municipal tax rate in the county for the full service community. There's only so much we can do with other sources of funding for needs moving forward. And it's trying to balance what to ask the voters for in any new taxes versus what operationally the service costs are. Anything else you had, Shirley?
No, you covered it well.
Questions?
Well, I think 5.9, and it's gonna be higher than that if we decide to add something back for the police department. Over 6% seems high. So I won't super get into it now, but I think maybe we could find some more creative ways between fund balance, between the dip we're gonna see next year, to find some other ways to perhaps get that. I would really like to see something that starts at 4% increase, but that's like $200,000, so it would be a pretty, that would take some more comfort on the fund balance or more comfort on the ARPA money or something to get there, but I think that's what, the expense budget is very reasonable, and I understand it, and I don't see anything jumps out as something we can continue to cut. There are things in there that I think are going to be hard to cut. So for me, that's sort of where my mind is now that I've got my questions answered on the expense side of it. I just want to see if we can come up with some reasonable ways to perhaps take that impact below below 5.
So rather than cut $600,000 in expenses, we'd look for approximately that,
Oh, 200, I think, or 250 or something, not 6.
or you, well, it's 5.9 to 4.
4.9.
I thought you said
Something that
4-2.
starts with a 4.
Like, yeah.
Something that starts with a 4. No, 4.8, 4.9, something like that, I think would feel better given, you know, we're living in I mean, we keep obviously pointing at escalating costs, but it's not being proved out in CPI or NIPAs or NEEPs or all the things I'm seeing are all closer to 3.
Yep.
So it's hard to blame it all on inflation, even though that's where everyone's head is at. There's no data that supports a 6% increase on inflation. I think it's because of our negotiated wages, which could be, they're being caught up. I mean, frankly, I think that's my personal opinion, is that these folks deserve a higher wage and they're getting caught up. But meanwhile, that impacts municipal budgets. So I don't begrudge that, but I think that's more of it than inflation.
Yeah,
But
I think
that's
that's
harder to
right.
explain.
And health insurance.
And health insurance and liability insurance. I mean, there's some things that are a lot of pressure. But
Yeah. So, I'm sorry, are there other general comments or?
How much do we have in the ARPA funds?
well, that's the kind of thing we just need, because you guys were going back to look at how much we hadn't spent on other projects, and so I think I'm just saying it's something that we should probably, when we get to January, that would be my sort of focus, as opposed to going back over any expense items. It would be like, what other money could we apply? So that's,
And I think that's one of the things, you know, we kind of had talked about is at this point, and I think that's part and parcel of it, is figuring out really what's our strategy going forward with that community projects fund, and you know, is it, you know, continuing with this model of trying to, you know, give as much we can to the community. That's maybe something we wouldn't have otherwise done, which is what our initial kind of thoughts had been, or is it, you know, taking some of this tax burden off, and or, you know, doing things that need to be done and would otherwise be part of the budget. And there's already, you know, based on what we're seeing here, there's already a significant dollar amount of this community project fund going into this budget. So do we want to put more? Do we, you know, is it, you know, how do we want to approach that? So I think that's more of a, you know, not policy, but, you know, it's just a decision point we need to make, I mean, going forward.
my FY27, when you look at the debt schedule, we have this $300,000 that we won't have to pay in debt next year. If we fill that up with personnel or ongoing costs, then when all of these other projects do hit and we need debt, but it'll all be an add.
Right.
So I'm hoping that next year we talk about using that for one-time spending, so that decrease is available for future debt.
Yeah.
Could some of that one-time spending be for next year? Could we shift some one-time capital savings into that whole next year? You know, that's the kind of sort of creativity I would have to think harder about with Eric and Shirley. But I think there's some wiggle room. That dip next year would be a great thing, but I do feel very strongly we have to hold it for all this other debt that's going to be rolling on in the next few years.
Surely with the audit work, I know with the ARPA funds, the FY24 general fund allocation, the 125,000.
Yeah.
You think come January we'll have a good read on if that'll be available or not?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll plan to give the board an updated kind of community project fund ledger at that January 7th meeting, and then we'll also identify there's about 350,000 in this budget, in this draft version with that community project funds between capital, and there's 50 put in the general fund to help balance it. We'll give you an idea of what it looks like available, what's being discussed in this draft budget, and then where that leaves you, and that can help you in January.
Great.
Great. Okay. We move on to other business, or are there other comments about this before we go? Hearing nothing? Other business?
One thing, legislative breakfast. I reached out to our delegation to schedule it. Thought we were all set. Then Senator Chittenden let me know the Chamber of Commerce legislative breakfast is the same day. So I said, no problem. I will check in with the board and we can recalibrate.
Boy, those guys want as many free breakfasts as they can.
We're looking at the 27th. I'm wondering if we try the following week on Monday, February the 3rd as an option.
Sure.
See if that works.
Sounds okay to me.
I don't think we'll get everybody, but I was hoping at least to get, at least part of the Senate delegation and our House delegation.
Yep. Okay.
Sound okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll re-poll and see.
Is there any other business?
No other.
No other? Okay.
Well, thank your department heads. That was
Yeah.
informative and well-run and clear, and appreciate the fact that they spent all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I really appreciate this format. I mean, this is our second year doing it on the Saturday, but I continue to reiterate, this works better, I think,
Me
than
too.
the,
Yeah.
yeah.
It gets exhausting.
Yes.
I stayed
The
awake
only-
the whole time.
The only benefit to doing it every week, every Tuesday for a month and a half is when I was on the school board, we got pizza. But we've never had that on the select.
Not here.
Okay, so is any final thoughts on issues? And hearing none, I will declare that we are adjourned.
Excellent.
I haven't seen it snowing out, so I think the road.